can start. There you go. Look at that. Right. Let me make sure I've got it. That's great. Okay. As we approach the winter here in the UK, health and social care quite rightly remains top of the agenda. The workforce has been central to the work that we've been doing over the course of the year, where we've been privileged enough to be interviewing leaders right across the spectrum to give us their insights about how we can tackle what is now clearly a workforce crisis. Predominantly, it's covered in the mainstream media in health, but social care is vital, an equal partner. And therefore, it's really important to hear from leaders whose depth and experience of background is so important. And I'm really privileged, as always, to be able to spend time with Raina Summerson, who is the Chief Executive of Agincare. Raina, thank you so much for giving us your time yet again today.
You're welcome, Sahel. Nice to see you. It's an important topic.
No, absolutely. I mean, since we last spoke ahead of the publication of the Languisson report, we decided that looking at the idea of future-proofing, because these are crises and issues tend to come on in almost predictable waves over so many years. Now, Agincare, of course, is an award-winning social care provider. 35 years, I think, this year since your establishment. Way back in, I think it was Weymouth. It began in 1986. You've been there for 17 years. I wanted to start, if I may, to focus on nursing, because obviously there's now been an appointment of a chief nurse for adult social care. This is an important strategic appointment and recognition, perhaps. But that segment of the healthcare workforce, which is important for social care, remains under strain. It remains massive shortages. What have you been seeing on the ground? What are you seeing that gives you some hope that perhaps we're challenging that, we're beginning to address that challenge?
I mean, I think you're right. I think, if we start with a kind of broader picture, the appointment of a chief nurse for social care is really important, because I think the role of nurses in social care has been really underplayed along with the rest of the workforce. So people see it as a kind of dead end place you end up in as a nurse. You do your career in the NHS and you might go into care homes as a last resort, and they fail to see the tremendous skill and the autonomy and the real joy in the scope of work and relationship building that social care nursing offers compared to in an acute or kind of primary setting. So I think it's great to have that social care presence. I've yet, if I'm honest, to really feel that in social care. It is early days, and I know Deborah's been out. I know this week she was kind of tweeting about being out and about with Andrea Sutcliffe. So I think, all of those things, and Andrea was, very aware of the social care nursing issues from her time in CQC. So I think it's a good start. It's about raising the profile. It's about people seeing it as a rewarding, fulfilling career throughout people's careers, not just at the end of them. It's about ensuring that people see what social care nursing can offer in terms of job satisfaction, career progression, pay banding, because there's lots of misconceptions about the pay banding in independent social care. And then I think it's about how do we use nurses in social care with increasing acuity levels across the people that come into social care, because when we're talking about nursing, we aren't talking about the kind of preventive, life enhancing kind of early days of social care intervention. We are talking about when people do need the clinical intervention. And so I think it's about, where do those skills come from? How do we share skills across all levels of nursing care across a system in terms of an integrated care system? How do we make sure that nurses are used well, the right skills in the right place at the right time? Too often, you have a nursing home and it's assumed that everybody in that care home has nursing intervention, needs nursing intervention. That's not true. Clinical skills should be assessed. They should be given as needed. And actually, I think there's something again about, in the future, do nursing homes need to have 24-hour nursing cover, given that we've got a shortage? Can we share across the system, have more interaction, have more observations and interactions between primary care, acute care and independent social care? So I think there's all those questions. I think what's being done out on the ground, I mean, people are obviously looking at recruitment from every angle, certainly looking more at international recruitment again. we've introduced, quite a kind of refined and a new welfare program for our international nursing cohort. So yeah, I think there's lots of ideas and things going across the ground, but I think it starts with that bigger awareness building and then drills down to some very practical, what can we do within primary care networks, what can we do within integrated care systems to share skills appropriately and use the right skills in the right place at the right time if they're increasingly scarce.
No, thank you. Two takeaways there for me was the fact that we've got the recognition and the fact that there is actually a broad and rich experts for nursing. And I think, as you say, secondly, that which will require some sort of regulatory nuance about, do we need everyone there at 24/7? I think that's a big topic. Going on to recruitment and retention, it's obvious we don't need to go through the numbers. We know the vacancy rates, etc. But retention is going to be really important, and attraction, which I think is vital. Now, I know Agincare does the full gamut of living care, home care, care homes, and I know the staff have been marked as absolutely fabulous by Joanna Lumley herself this year. But I just wanted to touch upon a couple of things that really struck me, and by all means expand upon that, about what you're doing in a really tight labour market. I know training now has been a big initiative for you for a few years. I was struck in particular, because I know you've been around the sector for a long time, and it's the student that you've been sharing, which I think have been fascinating. There's not an obvious route for students, perhaps stereotypically, social care, but you've been doing some great work. I think I've seen some of the stories which have been really moving.
Yeah, I think it's about, within a kind of global national crisis and then a social care crisis in terms of recruitment and retention, what can you do more as an employer? What can you do to be an employer of choice? What can you do to raise the profile of the roles and careers that you have available within your social care organisation? So I think that's what we've been kind of focusing on, and just refreshing every aspect of our people programme. And as you say, I think it's bringing those roles to life for people. The routes that our team members come into our organisation through is that, from college, is it through uni, is it as a part-time job that they fall in love with, is it because we've attracted them from another sector, and if so, what were their transferable skills and what drew them in? And then invariably students who come and do some time in social care and move on maybe to social work or nursing, but hopefully come back into the system. And I think that's part of what we've got to get our heads around. And I know we'll probably touch on this later, but in terms of that integrated care system working, is about that kind of, top trumps about stealing staff from each other. We've got to kind of recognize, are we upskilling and enabling a system to function from low-level preventive social care right through to kind of end-of-life care? And some of that is about sharing people and investment into people who might end up working in another part of that system. But yeah, the students, I think it is about attraction. It's about, I think in terms of younger people, and students aren't just, we can have mature students as well, but we talk about the younger cohort. We're talking about people who are really coming through strongly on their value base, on their ethics, about what are people, giving something back, about diversity and equality and all those things that are very precious and at the heart of values of social care. So I think they've got a great match in a lot of ways. Yep. But equally, there's a lot of negativity around social care and the pay and reputation aspect. So I think it's bringing it to life and letting them tell the story, and them attract, hopefully, other people from that values-based position.
Yeah, no, I think so. I was touched by, I think it's Sansom's story, a person who's done A levels, and I think whose grandmother had received care, and that was a catalyst, which is wonderful. And I love the phrase that I think there are many routes to care, whether it's a clinical role or a non-clinical role, academic route. But I think the key thing is, I think to coin your phrase, is having the heart to cope, to care, which I think is an important thing. Just to next topic, I wanted to expand a bit, because it's clearly even more powerfully in the zeitgeist than when we first spoke some months ago, and that's the whole issue around supporting wellness and well-being of the staff. The Health and Social Care Select Committee on Burnout obviously reported only 3 or 4 months ago in June, and highlighted what was an emergency state. You've been an inspector, of course, prior to joining. Just to remind you, and obviously culture is so important, but I just wanted you to expand a bit on the well-being initiatives that you're seeing. We all know it's incredibly important, and that's not something that's going to go away. I think that's going to be an ongoing commitment for foreseeable future.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, as you said, I think COVID and the pandemic has absolutely heightened people's awareness of well-being, but it's far from over. And I think there is also an expectation, as we said, about it's not just about what's going on in social care, it's about what's going on in workforce expectations and behaviours on a wider level and generationally. So I think there is an expectation about well-being that didn't exist maybe previously. And I think the pandemic's brought that to a head. So I think the initiatives that were developed in response to COVID are definitely ones that, again, as part of a review of people programme, I think most people will be looking at how do we maintain them, how do we enhance them, and I think the system, again, integrated care system, I think, again, that joint working between health services and social care to look at how can wellbeing programmes span all team members. And I mean, for us, it is that kind of, the I suppose more mechanistic. You've got an employee helpline, you've got benefits people can call on, but then there's being a bit more proactive and kind of really promoting those and saying, look, we think it's great if you use them, they're here, use them. And then it's about recognizing what stresses might be in a service. So you might actually do a little bit more proactive, let's do some workshops in this location for this service because it's actually had a really difficult time. Being more aware of mental health, and that's really, really coming through, particularly with our younger members. And so really wanting that, mental health first aid, that awareness and that openness about speaking about mental health, and having people who feel confident to support their colleagues if they see signs of distress or deteriorating mental health. So I think, all of those things are expectations. And I think there's the kind of broad, we've got it there as an employee benefit, we can draw on it from the system because we've got this from our CCG or whatever. But it's about bringing that to life again, a bit like we're saying about recruitment and retention, make it real, talk about it, promote it, give examples of how maybe other team members are using it so that people understand, because sometimes, it's that step to using a service, isn't it? Whereas if it's kind of embedded in your communications, in your meetings, and you're giving people real life examples of how their colleagues are using it, it becomes a little bit more open and meaningful.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, caring is, of course, the DNA of the whole sector. And if you're able to show that as leaders, it is okay to show that you need care and need some help and support. And I think, as you say, going now on to the next topic, I'm jumping ahead slightly, but you've mentioned it twice now. Clearly, the Health and Social Care Bill, we've got a few months to go until that's all on a statutory footing. Some of us who have been around more years than we want to admit remember integration being on the agenda officially for decades ago. But on the ground, we're getting some appointments now, ICS level. I want to focus more on workforce, obviously. What are you seeing? Obviously, you're a national organisation, new offices in Harrogate, all of this type of stuff. But in terms of your area or region, are you beginning to see the structures, and also most importantly, are we seeing enough attention for social care's place and advocacy and partnership in the ICS? I know it's a subject very much.
Yeah, really important to me. I know we've talked about it before. For me here in Dorset, where we've got our closest engagement with the ICS, we have set up what I feel is a really meaningful and increasingly meaningful dialogue. And I have to say, my ICS colleagues here in Dorset have been amazing. We did a presentation, we did some workshops on the people plan for Dorset, for this system, the event of the new, coming, new era approaching, and we're looking at that kind of people plan, and it is really holistic. And to be fair, they're putting social care last week. They said, could I and the council directors do presentations on social care as the opener for a workshop. And then today this week we've got another educational and development workshop, and they asked again, we feel we're neglecting social care a bit, could we bring that to the profile a bit in this work stream? So I think there's a real understanding of the interface and that kind of interreliance, and I think there's a real commitment. But I have to say I think that has been driven by the fact that social care has managed to kind of sneak in at these different levels. And my worry is, we don't have the time or the opportunity in all of our other areas to get into the ICS in the same way. And I hear from social care colleagues that they're finding it incredibly difficult. And So the worry is you kind of, it's like everything, every ICS meeting for the last 3 years, I've kind of banged on about, what about social care? And social care does this. And, so if, that breeds interest and awareness. And I think if you haven't got social care representatives in the ICS, and I don't think that is clear, it is not clear. And I think if anything, you look at the provider collaborative discussions and you look at the lists on the ICPs and the ICBs, and it is back to local authority rather than social care. And I know everyone has a problem with representation of social care because it's so dispersed, but we've shown in Dorset there is a way around that. You can do it. It takes a lot of time and effort and commitment, but we really need to be banging the drum from a social care perspective about getting those structures in, because I think when you get in there, it can really work. My fear is we're not in enough places and it's not as easy as it should be. So I think there's a huge amount of work to be done there at a kind of broader national level to hold ICSs to account about what their real social care interaction is.
No, thank you for that. And, I know that it's great to see the example in Dorset in terms of your advocacy, but clearly I'm seeing some of the appointments that are coming through, and I think there's still a sort of a gap in terms of representation of social care. I wanted to touch upon the broader topic, inevitably, in terms of we've had the health and social care levy and the commitments that are going to come over the next 3 years. I did come across a term on Twitter that someone was referring to the government's approach as bloviation, which is a 19th century word.
Yeah, that was
Which I did. There's a new one on me. Now, I just want to address the specific topic is how, in an era where there's labour shortages right across the system, and we're going to talk about the system, health and social care, agency use is likely to increase. How is that going to be financially sustainable, particularly for social care as a sector, which the Health and Social Care Select Committee is quoting figures quite rightly of 7 billion needed to restore what was done post austerity. So forget about the 3.6 over the next 3 years. How is it going to be financially sustainable in a tight labour market to have the workforce you need with agency spend likely to increase?
Well, I don't think it is. I think that's the worrying thing. Obviously hospitals are up against the same issues. So we've got acute hospitals and social care providers up against the same issues. So we're competing for the same team members. Often we're fighting with agency bills. People are moving to agency, not just because of a higher headline rate, but I think because of the stress that we're talking about within the system. So they see it as slightly easier, less responsibility, a bit more fluid. So all of these things. So that said, agency isn't for everyone, going to a different place all the time, different things. Some people love the team element, but I think when those team elements and the job satisfaction is being eroded in core roles, whether you're on a busy ward or you're in a care home or you're out in the community delivering home care, it's really hard, because once that job satisfaction, that joy of working as part of a team and making a difference starts lessening, you kind of might as well go and work on the agency for less responsibility and more money, and so and I think the issue is it isn't sustainable. It's not sustainable for people's care, because at the end of the day that affects people. We're about the care that people have at the end of the day. It's not just about our workforce and us as providers, it's about the impact on people receiving care. And if you're receiving that from a transient workforce who doesn't feel engaged and responsible in what they're delivering to the same degree, that's going to have an impact on the care and support that's received by people and the continuity and things like that. So it's absolutely damaging for the system in so many ways and for people's lives. We can't afford it. I was at a conference last week, people talking about particularly different operating models for care homes in particular, the REITs and where there's landlords and rentals. People cannot cope with costs just increasing and increasing without the commensurate income increasing, and still having to pay out for rents or mortgages and staffing, and all the utilities are going up, everything, the insurance is going up. So I think it is a really worrying time, and we want any extra money coming into the system to go to our team members, because that's the most important part. Obviously Jane at the moment, UKHCA, ADAS are calling for £11.50 for a minimum social care wage to match band 3 in the NHS. But even that probably, wouldn't be a magic wand by any means, because more than the money. It's about that the whole way social care is talked about, is treated, and the workforce feelings. So there's a lot of work in it, but it isn't sustainable to run social care or healthcare on agency.
No, and I think the final thing, and just to wrap up, because given the conscious of your time, is that this move to the systems working, as you've said, it's very important that you have representation. How the lines of accountability are going to fall is a complex matter, but having a people plan across the whole system will also require parity of funding sufficient so that you can have the workforce attracted to what clearly is an enriching environment. So I think your advocacy on that is very powerful, and I guess you continue to do that with other voices across the sector.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of work to be done. It kind of seems never ending, but it's and it's getting the voices of people that use, rely on services as well, making sure they're at the forefront, because it is a bit like we're saying with our recruitment and retention campaign. It's most powerful when it is that human element. So it's all very well providers and organisations banging on about the problems, but we know that the human element is what it's really about, and that is the most powerful messaging. We just need to get public awareness still up. It seems whatever we do, it seems always a drop in the ocean. It doesn't have that consistency and sustainability and public or political awareness. So.
Well, always as inspiring as ever to share time with you, and we'll put a few little droplets into the ocean for you and share this. It's always informative to speak to you, and thank you so much for your time and your insights.
Thank you, Suhail. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Okay.
Take care. Have a good day.
Take care.